Hello and welcome back to my channel. In today's session, we will look at some of the scenario-based interview questions that you can expect as part of your Python for DevOps. Now, these are some essential Python interview questions, especially for DevOps roles. So, whether you're preparing for a job interview or you're just looking to sharpen your skills, these real-world scenarios will give you the edge you need. Um, Once again, before I start off this session, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button. So let's get started with this. The first question I have is, how would you automate the creation and management of Amazon EC2 instances using Python? So for this, we will be making use of the Boto3 library, which is available for Python. So this is simply an AWS SDK, which we can use to create resources using Python. So we can use this to automate the interactions with various AWS services. So here is an example script that we have. We can use this script to create or to launch an EC2 instance. So what are we doing here? We are using the Boto3.resource to create an object to interact with the EC2 service. Then we are using the create instance method to launch an EC2 instance, and then we are providing the details as to which AMI to use, how many instances we want, the instance type, and all those details. Based on the instance that you want to launch, and this will launch when I run this script. It will take these details and then launch an instance for us. So here we are also getting the instance ID and we are printing it. The next question we have is, how can you use Python to fetch and display the status of a Kubernetes pod? For this, we can make use of the Kubernetes Python library, which can be used to interact with the Kubernetes cluster. So here is the example script that we have. So for this, essentially what we are doing here is we're using this config.load kubeconfig, which will load the configuration file of the Kubernetes, basically the kubeconfig file. Then we have the client.core v1 API, which creates an instance to the core v1 API class to interact with the Kubernetes core API. Then we have the v1 read underscore namespace underscore pod, which is to get the details of the specified pod in the specified namespace. So here we will be giving the pod name and the namespace from where it needs to fetch the details of the pod. And then finally we have the status of the pod. We are returning the status of the pod, which basically going to the cluster, interacting with the cluster, reading the config file, reading the pod, getting the details of the pod, and then returning the status, overall status of the pod. The next question we have is, write a Python script to clean up old Docker images on a server to free up space. So for this, we can make use of the Docker library, which is available for Python, and we can use this library to manage our Docker containers and Docker images using a Python script. So here is the example script that we have. So what we are doing here is we're first creating an instance to interact with our Docker, which is using the environment settings. So here we are creating kind of an object or an instance to Docker so that we can start interacting with it. Then we are using this client.images.list, which is to get a list of all the images, basically the dangling images. Here you can see I'm applying a filter, and then I'm using this client.images.remove to remove any images that are not used. So first I'm getting a list of all the images which are not being used, and then I'm doing a loop over each of the image, and then I'm removing it one by one. So this will help us to delete any unused images in our Docker. The next question we have is, how would you use Python to automate database backups and upload them to an S3 bucket? So for this, we will be making use of the sub process to basically execute our database backup commands. And then we'll make use of the Boto3 library to upload the backup files to the S3 bucket. So we are making those two libraries. One is the sub process and the other is our Boto3. So here's the example script that we have. So First, we will be running the subprocess command, which is nothing but creating running the Linux commands. So we're using the MySQL dump command to create a backup of our database and then store it in this dump underscore file. Once we have that, we are talking with the S3 service. We're creating an object. We're creating an instance for the S3 service, and then we will be uploading the dump file that we have created in this step to our S3 bucket. All right, so here s3.upload underscore file. So this is what we are using to upload the file, the backup file that we have created in this step to our S3 bucket. So essentially, we can use this to create a backup using the sub process and then upload that backup file to our S3 bucket in the AWS account. The next question we have is write a Python script to monitor the status of a Jenkins job and send an alert if it fails. So for this, we will be using the Jenkins API library, which will allow our Python script to interact with the Jenkins service. And then we will be using the SMTP lib module to send email notifications. So here's the example script that we have. So we are using the Jenkins API, and then we're also using the SMTP lib. So first, we are gonna get our job. All right, so we need to monitor a particular job, right? So Jenkins dot get job and then the name of the job. So this will fetch the details of our job, and then we are getting the last status, or the last build status of that particular job over here. So last underscore build dot get status. So this will return the status of the last run of that particular job. And once we have it, we will be using the send underscore alert to send out notification if the job is not successful. So here we have the function which will get the status of the job, and then we have another function which will send out the notification. Here we are calling the function get job status. We're giving the Jenkins URL and the name of the job. We'll capture the status of the job, and if the status is not equal to success, we will be sending out our notification with the details. All right, so this way we can monitor our Jenkins job and see if the job is not successful, and if it's not successful, we are sending out a notification. The next question we have is how can you use Python to parse JSON logs and extract specific information? So for this, we can make use of Python's built-in module, which is a JSON module, which will allow us to parse the JSON logs and also extract information from the JSON log. So here is an example script that we have. So first, we will be loading the JSON file to basically read the data, and then we'll be using this for loop to basically look for this keyword error in the log file. So any entries that contains this error level. So this script will print each error log entry essentially. So we are reading the JSON file. We are looking for this entry error. If it finds, it will simply print that particular line for us. All right, so we can make use of here. This is a built-in module that we have, so we can simply use that. The next question we have is write a Python script to create a new user on multiple remote servers. So for this, we can make use of the Paramico library, which allows us to connect to the remote machines via SSH and then execute the commands on the remote machines. So here's the example script that we have. So we are making use of the Paramico library for this. So first, we are gonna create an SSH instance to your server, whatever server you have specified, and then we are setting this SSH dot set missing host key policy. So this will essentially set the policy to automatically add the host to your known host file. Then we are using the SSH dot connect to connect to the machine. All right, so here we are given the server, the username, the password, which will connect to the machine. And then we're using this ssh.exec command to execute whatever the command that we want to run. And then finally, we are closing the SSH connection. Here, we are giving the server details, the username that we want to create, and then we are doing a loop. So for each of the server, we are calling the function. We are giving it the details, which will go ahead and create the user for us on multiple servers. The next question we have is, how would you use Python to monitor a file for changes and then trigger an action whenever a change is detected? Watchdog library, which can be used to monitor any file system events and then trigger actions whenever an event takes place. So here is the example code that we have. So we are making use of the watchdog library. So here from the watch from the watchdog.observers library, we're importing the observer, which will help us to monitor the file system events. And then we are making use of the change handler function over here, which defines a custom event handler to handle any file modification events. Then we have this observer dot schedule, which schedules the event handler to monitor any changes to the specified directory. So what we're telling our watchdog is to monitor any event that happens to the path to the file that we are specifying over here. And then observer dot start will start basically monitoring the file system events. And then we have this observer.join, which waits for the observer thread to complete. So basically, we're using this observer dot watchdog dot observers to monitor any events that you want within a file. Like in this case, we're looking for modifications, and this will continue running until we interrupt it. So here you can see observer dot stop and observer dot stop and observer dot join, which is like waiting for the observer thread to complete. So we can make use of the watchdog to monitor any events for in a particular file. The next question we have is, how can you use Python to query and update DNS records using AWS Route 53? So again, for this, we'll make use of the Boto3 library, which will allow us to interact with the AWS services, which in this case will be the Route 53, and we can use that to manage our DNS records. So here I have an example script. So what we are doing here is we're first creating an instance to the Route 53 service. Then we are kind of creating a method or function to update our Route 53 record. So here change resource record sets. So we'll give the hosted zone ID and then the update that you want to do. So we are doing an upsert, which is to create or update our record. Then you can give the record name, the record type, and the values basically that you want to update. So here action set to upsert, which this basically specifies if you want to create or update the DNS record. And then we have the resource record set over here, which defines the DNS record attributes that you want to add. Like you want to add a record, a CNAME record, or any other record that you want to add, you will be defining that. And then when we call this function, it will go to the Route 53 service for that particular zone, hosted zone, and then make the necessary changes. The next question we have is, write a Python script to manage and rotate log files on a server. So for this, we can make use of the sh-util module, which is available in Python to rotate our log files. So here we are first defining the timestamp to, which is basically to generate a timestamp that will be appended to the log file. Then we have the sh-util.move over here, which will rename the existing log file to a backup log file. So log file will be your the path where your logs are available, and then backup would be wherever you wanna or the name of your new log file that you want. And then we have this open log file, which creates a new empty log file after the rotation. Okay, so we are generating the timestamp. We are renaming our existing log file with the timestamp. we are moving the existing log to a backup file, and then we are creating a new empty log file so that it can be used in the next run of your application. The next question we have is, how can you use Python to fetch metrics from a Prometheus server? So for this, we can make use of Python's requests library to query the Prometheus server API and then fetch the metrics. So here is the example script that we have. So we are making use of the requests dot get, which is basically we are hitting the Prometheus API to get the required parameters, the query whatever we want, and then we are getting the JSON, we are passing the JSON and storing it in this variable result. All right, so we're connecting to the Prometheus server, we are getting the details, and then we are storing it in this. We are parsing. It's a JSON response that we get, so we are parsing the JSON response, and then we have this result of data of result, which basically returns the metric data from the JSON that gets from the Prometheus server. So here, if you see, we are defining the Prometheus URL, the query that you want to run, and we are calling the function over here. And then we are doing a loop. So for each, depending on the metrics that we get, we are printing each of the metric over here. The next question we have is, write a Python script to restart a service on multiple remote servers if a specific process is not running. So for this, again, we can make use of the Paramico library, which will allow us to connect to the remote machines and then check for a specific process. And if the process is not running, simply restart that process. All right. So here's the example script that we have. So we are using the paramico.ssh client, which basically creates an instance for the SSH client. Then we have the ssh.set missing host key policy, which is to automatically add the host keys to your known host file. Then we have the ssh.connect, which will SSH into the remote machine using the details that we have provided over here. And then we have the ssh.exec command, which is to run a particular command on that machine. So in this case, so here, if you see, we're checking if the process is running or not. So we are doing a pgrep and checking for the process name. Now, if there's no process ID found, then we will go ahead and restart the service. So here we are declaring all our variables, the remote machines, the process, the service that you are looking for. And then we are calling the functions over here. We are doing a loop. So for each of the server, we are calling this function, which will log into that server, check for the process. If the process is not running, then restart the service for us. The next question we have is, how can you use Python to fetch the current list of IAM users in an AWS account? So again, for this, we make use of the Boto3 library, which will allow us to connect to the AWS services and interact with the AWS services. So here is an example script that I have. So in this case, we are creating an instance to the IAM service using Boto3, and then we are listing the user. So you'll have this existing method. We are simply calling that method, which will get a list of the IAM users that we have, and then we are doing a loop over each of the user, and then we are getting the user name for each of the users, and then we are returning the users over here. And here we are calling the function, and then we are basically printing the name of the users. The next question we have is, write a Python script to monitor the memory usage of a process and kill if it exceeds a threshold. So for this, we can make use of the psutil library to monitor and manage our processes. So here is the example script that we have. So what are we doing here is we're using this psutil.process underscore iter, which is to iterate, or basically we're doing a loop. So we're giving the process ID, the name, and the memory info. Now, if the info, the name of the process is equal to the process name, so we'll be passing the process name over here. We are getting the memory usage in MB. Okay, so here memory usage, and you can see here we are giving the 1024, which is in bytes. Now, if our memory usage is greater than the threshold, so here you can see here we have declared the threshold. So if the memory usage is greater than the threshold that we have defined, we are telling it to kill the process. All right. So we're using the ps util to get the details about the process, the memory. In this case, we are checking it with the threshold that we have defined. If it's greater than the threshold, then we are killing that process. The next question we have is, how can you use Python to automate the deployment of a Kubernetes application using a YAML configuration file? So for this, again, we can make use of the Kubernetes library to interact with our Kubernetes services using Python script. So here's the example script that we have. So we're using this load underscore kube underscore config to load the Kubernetes configuration file. Then we are initializing the API client over here, and then we are applying the YAML file. So utils.create from YAML, and then we'll be giving the YAML file, and then we are basically deploying the YAML file that we have created. And here, if you can see, we are giving it the YAML file, we're declaring the variable, and we are calling that function over here. So essentially, we are using the Kubernetes library. We are loading the configuration file. We are initializing the API client, and then we are creating it from the YAML file that will be passing. We are kind of deploying it to the Kubernetes client. And that brings us to the end of our scenario-based interview questions for Python. I hope you found these questions helpful. If you did find it helpful, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Please hit that bell icon to get notified whenever I upload new videos, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.